Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Nadex Morning Analysis. It is April 5th. God, I got to think about that. April. Wow. This year is actually kind of cruising by. My name is Todd Rich. I'm with Nadex. With me, as usual, my good friend Brian Caprice from Keep Trading Simple. Before Brian and I jump into potential hotspots in the markets today's, things that you might want to look at. I do need to share this disclosure statement. Wow, I'm having a tough time.
It's Monday
morning.
Not enough coffee.
Definitely not enough coffee.
Mm-hmm.
I do need to share that trading involves risk and may not be appropriate for everyone, that any trading decisions you make are solely your responsibility and at your own risk, and that this is an educational session. Please do not construe anything Brian or I say as a buy or sell recommendation. We are doing this for your educational purposes. So the story of the day, one, I want to hope or wish or hope that everyone had a nice holiday, whether you were celebrating Easter or Passover or you enjoyed your Good Friday. The markets were closed on Friday, but the United States did release the non-farm payroll numbers on Friday. And with that came some pretty good news.
Yeah, it's excellent news. Yeah.
Right?
I mean, it was
over 9.
Yeah, 900,000. It was expected to be 200,000. The prior number was also adjusted higher too.
Higher,
so
to 400.
Yeah, 468. It was the prior was adjusted up to 468. The forecast was 652, and the actual came in at 916. So over 300,000, or almost 300,000 more. Initial job, hires.
So people are getting hired. People are getting hired, and so what we're seeing today, and that's what we're going to talk about today, is the market reacting to the U.S. hiring. That things look like we're heading in the right direction, even though we're seeing a little bump in COVID cases. We're seeing massive increase in number of people getting vaccinated. So all in, people are pretty excited. Equity indice markets are opening green across the board, all up north of 0.5%. So Brian, let's just go ahead and jump into what we're seeing.
Yeah, that data is great. And one thing I want to point out as well too is and this is something a little bit different than the last recovery that we saw. Again, great positive change. The unemployment rate came exactly as expected, and this is one thing that we didn't see last time. Basically, this kind of signifies that the participation rate is just as high as it was before, where last recovery it was not as high. So again, the participation rate is one of the things that again you can really see inside of the unemployment rate number coming down. The bad thing about this though is the average earnings month over month is going down. So people are coming back to work, but they're getting paid less. So that's not necessarily the best thing, but hey, a job is better than no job at this point.
I think part of that is a lot of the jobs that are getting hired are service sector jobs, which were totally decimated. So, right. So that's going to impact it, but.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, today we have one number this morning. We have ISM services. If you guys remember last week, we had a really, really good ISM manufacturing PMI. But as Todd just mentioned, services is the one was hit a little bit more. It's still expected to be, above 50 at 58 is what the forecast is. So again, it's just kind of another way to kind of cap off Monday. Now, we will see lower trading this week. This is a very popular week for spring break. I know in Maryland, this is the week that everybody's going away and the kids are off from school today. The only thing that kind of pops up as a negative, and again, there's no way we can have a day of nothing but positive, is there's actually one article written talking about COVID mutations. We'll see. I don't know how much traction it's going to get. It's on a CAU website. Again, I actually do like BNN when I'm up there watching it. But they were actually the ones that found the first mutation. We'll see how this kind of goes. They're talking about how the new mutations are popping up at an increasingly complicated patterns. So it's kind of, that was the big question. It's not about how quick people can get vaccinations. It was, will the vaccinations work against the new variants, and can they stop the mutation? Imagine if they can come out and say, we have tracked this down. We know where the mutations are, how they're mutating, but because of X, Y, and Z inside of this, it doesn't matter if it mutates. We can block 99% of the mutations.
Right.
market goes crazy. So this is what we're seeing right now. Here's the ES. This is a 15-minute chart. It is a little bit delayed, so it is a little bit higher than this right now, but I'm showing it's a 0.67 up. Right now, we're in that kind of stage right now with everything being positive, good numbers. The retail trader has not gotten react to non-farm. This is not necessarily a time to trying to put a cap on these things. I would say, with everything we've seen, we mentioned it last week about, hey, listen, this is going to go higher. It's going to go. If you remember on Thursday, we said, hey, listen, we're going to be hitting 4,000. Look for it. It's going to be here. You played how you want. It's coming, and now we're at 4,036. So I would say we're kind of in the same situation right now. Being a Monday, being a lower, a lower volume week. Again, the VIX right now, it looks like it's showing that it's slightly delayed, but it looks like it's up about 3%, which again is, not necessarily a bad thing. So I would say at this point, if you can find something that's decent on a pullback, again, remember, we don't want to buy when it's at its absolute high. You want to wait for a pullback to be able to get in. On a 15-minute chart, you can see there's a couple levels that were decent that provided bounces in the overnight. There was a small one right here that you could have taken something off of as well. But really look for levels of basing, and when they come back to those levels, look for pops higher is what I would say today as far as the ES goes.
So how could you do this on the Nadex, on the Nadex markets? And I think we're going to look at all three of the products today: knockouts, call spreads, and binary options. And we'll just take a look at them when we look at each one of the products. Here we're in knockouts for the ES. And you can see the blue lines on the left-hand side, which give you your clear, distinct boundaries. But if you were looking to play this from the long side, these are Delta 1 products. So you're actually trading the price of the Nasdaq. The ES future, the S&P future. And if you were to go long this and it were to go down and touch the floor, that's where you would be knocked out of your trade. Okay, you're wrong. Something turned the markets over, but your downside is limited. If we were to continue to creep higher, you could potentially profit. These are weekly contracts. So the only time that these will actually settle is either when they either touch the floor or the ceiling and you're knocked out. That's why they're called knockouts. Or at the end of the week. Does not mean you need to have one of those two things happen. If you just thought we were going to creep higher today, you could potentially buy a knockout. And if it were to go your way a bit, you could always choose to sell it. Take your profits. Thank you very much. Knowing that your downside is protected, because that knockout floor would knock you out. We'll look at call spreads and binary options as well after Brian talks about what do we get after the S. What do we want? The S&P 500. I think maybe the Nasdaq here.
Yeah, NQ.
I mean, everything
actually has some levels. Yep.
Oh, all right. Excellent.
Yeah. And I will say too, guys, I do believe that this week will be the week of positivity. I do think we will go higher with things that we're talking about. I do think that we will have some retracements next week on a grander scale. The experts have already started to predict it. Everybody traveling right now on spring break, and like I said, on my son's lacrosse team that I coach, I think I have 4 different sets of parents right now traveling. One's in Jamaica, 2 are in Florida. With this travel, there's going to be an increase in COVID. Every single time there's been travel or any type of holiday where people are leaving, going somewhere else, there has been a spike. There's going to be a spike, and that's probably going to be the news that kind of puts the cap on the market and brings it back down. But I don't think it's going to hit this week. I think that'll be more of a next week story. Now that that's out there, and again, NQ, you can see we actually have some levels that are above where we are. We're spiking right now, just like everything else. I think NQ is in a good position right now as well. Last week on Thursday, we talked about this pulling back to a zone, and this is exactly what I was talking about. Breaking through a zone, coming back, touching it, and go higher, and you can see we came back, we touched the 13,392, we pulled back again, we ended the week, and now it's kind of on its drive again. The one thing different with this one, actually, let me go back up to a 30-minute for this. Whoops, not a 45. So this is not in a situation where we're kind of at all-time highs here. Where is it? I lost it. Nope, it's this way. Right there. So we do actually have levels up here where we do have sellers that have shown that they're in the market and there's been some movement. Right now we're flirting with this level here, and this level is probably due to break up really above the 13,400 level. There's really no reason at this point. I mean, it's hit 3 times now, almost 4 times. So again, we're expecting this level to break. The next time we really have any sellers stepping in is at 13,530 to 13,565. And you can see we had this pattern where it pops up, kind of came across base, and then dropped down pretty hard. And that was about that was a 130 actually a 2 o'clock move in the afternoon. So it's in the time where we know we have actual bank sellers kind of stepping into that range. So I would say right now we're probably clear until that level. Could there be a retrace off of that level? Sure, there could be. I mean, remember, as we drive up, if we do nothing but drive up today, there's going to be profit taking. Profit taking is
At
basically
some
people
point.
selling their
Yep.
positions. That would be a pullback off of that level. So you could either use the 13,530 as a profit target for today. You could use it for a bounce as an entry. And remember, if we go straight up today, it's only going to take one kind of weird bit of data for a lot of a lot of people saying, "Yep, I should get my profit out of this one," and then have it roll back down. If everything is straight up, you tend to have a retrace the next day, but we'll see how big it can really push. Right now, and again, remember my data is a little bit delayed, but right now we're showing NQ is the biggest mover right now. So again, the fastest is typically the first to stop, bounce, and then kind of pull back for profit taking.
Yeah. Yeah. And right now the Nasdaq is up just over 0.8%. Actually, and we're going to get into the S&P is up 0.7%. The Dow is actually right there, right in between them. So we'll do the Dow here in a second. I did want to show, for Nasdaq, one thing you could look at are call spreads. Now you're not knocked out if it touches one of the boundaries. So if it were to retrace, if you were to go long, one of these and it were to come back down and touch the floor, you're not knocked out. You've got some time to be right, but there's a premium in here. There's going to be a premium. That premium's going to be bigger earlier in the day, but you can actually take a look and it does show you. Chart's blue if you're buying, red if you're selling, but it gives you the range right there on the call spreads where you could. If you're looking for it to go up, I mean, you can take a look at the different call spreads that we've got. We've also got some daily options out there, so you kind of have to click around and take a look at what suits you best. Again, everything defined risk, defined reward, just not knocked out if you touch one of the boundaries. Let's finish off with the Dow.
Okay.
Let me flip this over and take a look, because the Nasdaq's not at all-time highs, but the S&P 500 and the Dow are. So it's like the S&P and the Dow. I mean, we're in uncharted territory, literally. Nasdaq is just fighting its way back.
Yep. And same thing. I mean, I'm just throwing different levels on here, but you can see these are large explosions in price. Some stabilization, a pop, came back down, stabilized and popped, and you see there's a little touch there. This was a level of basing. It came down about 745 today and then popped higher again. So I would say kind of in the same thinking. I mean, again, the Dow is kind of the broad, overall market, seeing non-farm and numbers that high. A lot of this kind of boils back into the Dow because that's the, again, NQ is more tech sector based. This is more manufacturing based, and we're seeing all those numbers do well. So I would say same situation. Don't try to pick a top in this one. Wait for it to pull back. If we can get a decent level of base, I mean, say for some odd reason this is the top and it starts pulling back down again, that is something we can use later on down the road. But I would say today it's kind of the same thing. I mean, there's nothing just but positivity and great numbers, and the retail trader hasn't gotten to react to it. And again, more vaccinations going out. I mean, there'll probably be good headlines. I mean, it's one of those things with everything rolling the way that it is, there's less of a risk of some type of a collapse. I mean, we're seeing gold down, dollar up, oil is down 2.4%. So again, that should help out with, gasoline prices as well. So, they're showing that right now we're seeing no inflation, a little bit stronger dollar, weaker gas,
Yeah.
It's for the most part, this is, this is all positive.
We'll get into oil here in a second. The other way to play, I mean, across the board. I mean, again, the S&P 500 all-time highs, positive news, markets creeping higher. Here's the Dow, all-time highs, it's creeping higher. Nasdaq, definitely green on the day, not at all-time highs, but heading back up there. Now, I showed knockouts and call spreads. If you're not familiar with those contracts, by all means, please, you can take a look at some of the education on the Nadex website to learn a little bit more about them. But what most people are here, most are hot markets. What people really like about the Nadex markets are these binary options. And the binary options, all of them, every one of these contracts, when they settle, will either go to 100 or to 0. Will the S&P 500, the Nasdaq, or the Dow Jones be above this level in a certain time frame at the end of the day? And these are all probabilities. Right now, you're trading a probability. Right now, here's it's just slightly above 50%. Why? Because it's already trading slightly above, the Dow is already trading slightly above this level. Can you day trade these numbers, these probabilities? And the answer is yes. If you think we're going to see a pop on the open, um, you know, more than what we're seeing right now, you could potentially buy, you know, some of these binary options. And if it were to go higher and the probabilities were increased, you could liquidate your position, take a quick profit. If you're wrong, and I mean, obviously the probabilities would come back down, but here you've got, these are daily ones. You got all day for this to potentially go higher. But in the end, every one of these is either 0 or 100. If it's above, it goes to 100. If it's below, it's going to go to 0. And there's opportunities, and you could take a look at the binary options in all three of these products today. Another way to do it, because it is also defined risk, defined reward, and it's all calculated on the order ticket for you. You think it's going up, you buy. You think it's going to be below, you can sell. All right, Brian. The one other thing you mentioned, I think I'd like to cover today. I mean, the story of the day is obviously equity indices, but you mentioned oil. I think it's probably good.
There's been a ton of movement in oil. Yeah, I mean, right now oil's down 2.4%, and you can see it's. I mean, that's with it rally. I mean, and that's rallied up like 50 cents from where it was earlier at about 7 o'clock this morning. But we saw a very, very big push, and we were talking about. I counted these hits out this morning. We had a really big push back here on the first, right? Drove all the way through, and again, we had a level where we had 3 touches, expected it to break, it did. But we mentioned it's not really the best long opportunity because we were talking about getting short at 61.70. It missed it by about 2 cents, right? And then we closed out the week high. Again, big parabolic move. We typically expect a retracement, right? When we see that, and we did. There's your gap, there's your pullback, and then it's just done nothing but collapse back down again. And I would say overall, I'd have profit. If you're short this position, I'd say, I could see this bouncing down here at 59. There's a little bit of a level that's been put in about that, the 730 bounce right here. But again, oil has been a very, very big mover when everything else is going up. This is a great scenario, right? We want oil prices. I mean, I know gas here got up to like what? Like 285, 290, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, $3 gas again!" But it being down 2% is always a great thing. So, I would say keep an eye on this one. There's a little level up top. I would say that we're kind of bracketed in right now between these two. And again, remember, people may say, "Why is this moving so much?" Like people are getting hired. This should be going, more demand. Well, right now, if you remember last week, OPEC Plus meeting. What they were mentioning was having a slow, withdrawal of the production restrictions, basically saying that they are trying to increase the supply on the market. Again, if we're not quite back yet and they're increasing supply, that means more supply, which means, again, there's less of a reason for demand because the supply will again, that brings price back down again. So that's pretty much what we're seeing right now is this is the reaction to OPEC Plus last Thursday.
All right. Well, listen, we went a little longer. It's a Monday, so and it is rather interesting. We're seeing a lot of exuberance in the markets today for the open. If you got any questions for Nadex, please email us, customerservice@nadex.com. We can't help you if you don't let us know you need some help. Brian is also very accessible. You can email Brian and ask him questions. Support@keeptradingsimple.com. Please feel free to reach out to him. With that, I think we kind of rounded it up already. Equities all looking higher on the open. Oil did see that spike on the news on Friday, but then has sold off since then. And should be an interesting week. Wait to see how everything plays out. But today it's equity markets. I think that's where you're going to see some of the action. With that, you can catch Brian and me again tomorrow morning. And we want to wish y'all good luck in the markets. Thanks, everyone.